Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum and very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning. I happen to be Shehzad Khan. With me, I'm really lucky. I've been joined by my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Hajra Satti. We hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well, that your fast is going well as well. It's a bright sunny day over here in Islamabad, but first things first. Hello Hajra, assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam. Ramadan Mubarak to you and
like
everyone who is out there. I think Islamabad is freshly showered and it is presenting its beauty, and that too I think in the peak of the spring season or transitioning towards the spring season. We will see. But widespread intermittent rain with snowfall over the hills continued yesterday in various parts of the country, as the Met Office predicted more downpour during the next 24 hours. According to Met Office, widespread intermittent rain, wind, thunderstorm with snowfall over hills is expected in GB, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, northeastern central Punjab, Murree, Nathia Gali, Pothohar region and Islamabad. Heavy rain with snowfall over hills is likely at isolated places during that forecast period. Met Office informed that moderate to heavy rainfall and snowfall might occur and cause the road closures, slippery conditions in Murree, Nathia Gali, Naran Kaghan, Chitral, Dir Sawat and Kohistan. Possibility of the landslides, avalanche in the hilly areas of KP, GB and Kashmir, and tourists and travelers are expected to take their precautions while flocking there, and we have witnessed that I think past couple of years before that whenever there's a snowfall, people just flock to Murree mindlessly and it creates a lot of havoc there, wreck there. So don't be mindful while you're planning your trip.
Exactly, and for everybody who was thinking that they really need to take out their summer clothes, well, right now this is not the time. Because today when I woke up, I was like, okay, I do not really need to get influenza again. But while we are at it, ladies and gentlemen, we do know for a fact that ICC Champions Trophy is being hosted by Pakistan. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it to the semi-finals, but the teams who have made it to the semi-finals are Australia, India, South Africa and New Zealand, and the semi-finals are set to begin today. In the first semi-final, India will take on Australia in Dubai. The clash between these two cricketing giants is sure to be a thrilling contest, with both teams aiming for a spot in the final. India dominated the group stage, winning all their matches. They defeated Bangladesh by 6 wickets, with Shubman Gill's century leading the charge. And Australia, on the other hand, won one match and had 2 washed out due to rain. Their campaign began with a solid 5-wicket win over England, highlighted by Josh Inglis's 120-run knock. The second semi-final will be held on Wednesday at Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore, where South Africa will face New Zealand. Both semi-final matches will start at 2 p.m. The final of the ICC Champions Trophy will be played on March 9th. And if India qualifies for the final, well, the final will be in Dubai as well. First of all, ICC announces match officials for Champions Trophy semi-finals. The ICC has announced, New Zealand's Chris Gaffney and England's Richard Illingworth will be the on-field umpires for the first semi-final between Australia and India. Michael Goff will be the third umpire and Andy Pycroft will be the match referee. Sri Lanka's Kumar Dharmasena and Australia's Paul Rifle will be the umpires for the second semi-final. Joel Wilson will be the third umpire and Ranjan Madhugale will be the match referee.
Right, and I think this is a very interesting news developing in that too in the world of the cricketing world, but we will develop this conversation.
Exactly, and Hajra, in addition to this, because imagine that Australia will be actually featuring for the semi-final today as well, but they have had an injured player as well, so I would want to just kind of update our audiences about that, because in a major blow to Australia ahead of the ICC Champions Trophy semi-finals, aggressive opener Matthew Short has been ruled out of the tournament due to injury. अब इनको समझ आएगा कि हमारा साइम और फखर इंजर हुआ था तो हमें कैसा लगा था. So I think everybody needs to realize that.
I think Shehzad is really heartbroken, and his raw emotions, unfiltered emotions are coming back.
Stop looking at
cricketing.
I was like, अब नहीं देखना cricket.
Right. I think this is just a temporary injury, and I think his passion will again pour and flow down. But now we are going to talk about, Shehzad, a lot of people. I think Muslim community has become a very influential community, like expat communities in the Western world and the Middle East region, and we see how Muslims are represented, how their festivals are representative in their cityscapes, in their public spaces. We've seen how in the London there's one particular street which is decorated, and it is a practice that is happening for years now. And this year we've seen that London's mayor Sadiq Khan has also been there celebrating and opening that, and greeting the arrival of the Ramadan. But now we're going to talk to someone who lives in the Toronto, and we've also seen that they've also decorated public spaces in Toronto welcoming Ramadan 2025. So in order to deliberate and ruminate upon how Muslim community is celebrating Ramadan in the West, we are very glad that we have been joined by HIRA, who happens to be a journalist residing in Toronto. Assalamu alaikum, HIRA, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hajra. Thank you so much for having me.
Hira, first of all, Ramadan
Ramazan,
Mubarak.
Ramazan Mubarak, Hira, to you. And please tell us that how do you celebrate Ramadan? Because I've been watching there's specific Ramadan specific decor, just like the Christmas decor, just like the what do you call that autumn season
Yeah.
decor. There's also Ramadan specific decor, and I think Muslim communities are very particular about instilling the values of Ramadan in their kids, in their next generation, and just greeting the arrival of the Ramadan.
You're absolutely right. We are very heavy on decor. My siblings and I, we decided to start decorating our home in 2020. This was during the pandemic. And of course, during that time, we're not able to go out for iftaris. We weren't able to go and meet our loved ones. So we're like that within our homes, let's create that festive atmosphere. But I feel like more than just the Ramadan decor, which of course attracts our younger cousins, the children of our aunts and uncles, it attracts them. It has something for them to talk about at school as well. But I feel that more than just the decor, it's a great conversation that is being held within our Muslim households throughout North America because we have a lot of questions to answer outside our homes, outside our communities, within schools, universities, even at workplaces. So I'm quite privileged to be living in Ontario, Canada, which is a very inclusive province within the North American region. I would say so. It's a mini Pakistan, you would say. All of the Pakistani groceries that we have here, you will find your pyramids of ruafza, you will have your fried samosa, pakore wali cheeze. So the entire culture of Pakistan has been brought into Toronto, not just through the various foods, not just through the various clothes and boutiques which commemorate Ramadan and up to Eid. We have all kinds of outfits displayed for every woman, girl out there. But something at a practical level, what I've seen is that there has been a decrease in the cost of foods, beverages, which the Canadian governments and outlet stores have implemented. So it's not just respect with regards to Muslims fasting, but they are making sure that they are making the livelihood of Muslims much more easier to navigate.
That's great, Hira. But I think as a Muslim living in the West, like you mentioned, and I would like to take a very important point through your conversation, and that is that you have to answer a lot of questions regarding fasting, regarding Ramadan to your non-Muslim community, your non-Muslim friends or colleagues. Do you feel that those conversations have improved? Because I think as a Muslims, whenever we are explaining to non-Muslims, we're just delving into, the conversations about how there's an intermittent fasting, which is getting a lot of traction nowadays within the wellness industry, health and fitness industry. But I think Ramadan is more than that intermittent fasting. It has its metaphysical element to it, the spirituality to it, the cleansing to it, the taqwa aspect to it. So how do you feel? Do you feel that Muslims are doing a better job in explaining not just the physical or the health benefits, but also the spiritual benefits, or they're not just interesting in this, very religious conversation in the first place?
So I think because in the West, everything has to be answered in depth because that why factor. So as young Muslims, may you be going to school, universities, or even at a workplace, you need to know that why.
True.
Because when somebody's asking you a question, it is your moral duty to be able to answer it to the best of your ability. And as a Muslim, it is your duty to introduce your faith to other individuals who are asking you, why are you fasting? Of course, with the whole wellness culture that is out there, the holistic culture that's out there, we know why intermittent fasting is the healthiest form of regulating our cortisol levels, insulin levels, all of that. That's the physical aspect of it, the health aspect. When it comes to the spiritual bit, I feel like there are some, actually there are a lot, but three of my particular favorite North American scholars. There's Sheikh Jawad Kazwini, Sheikh Azhar Nasir, and Syed Amar Nakshwani, who in English are beautifully introducing the month of Ramadan to the youth, answering their questions, giving them the resources to answer non Muslims when they ask you questions in such a profound and academic way that not only do you learn yourself, but you're able to inform others around you as well.
Exactly. And And Hira, it's not just that. I believe that, with all of these decorations and, Muslims doing their things, inviting people over iftar buffets, going to the mosque, what happens is that people are actually intrigued to kind of figure it out themselves, whether what's happening with the Muslim community. And it's beautiful, which is why I still remember that how in England, there's a group of doctors who would actually contribute and will actually prepare iftar for everybody else. So it does not really matter whether you come from a Muslim background or not. How much do you think all of this actually plays a role in giving dawah to other people that, hey, you know what, it's a beautiful religion and you really need to be a part of it?
So I always say this, that Islam is a faith of obedience and akhlaq and humanitarian acts. So within the humanitarian acts, I'll elaborate on that. The amount of social work that is done within the province of Ontario, there are a couple of charities which I also join hands with. Immense donations come in through not just through Muslim families, but through non Muslim families. Because when they see the amount of charity work that Muslims are doing for the month of Ramadan, for underprivileged communities, they want to give as well. They say that, oh, we didn't know that this was a problem in Afghanistan. We didn't know that this was a problem in Kashmir or Palestine for that matter. There are so many issues, so many requirements that are needed to be fulfilled. So humanitarian work is addressed through that, through the influencers who are doing, mashallah, a wonderful job. But with regards to the akhlaq bit, your mannerisms, I feel like inviting somebody into your home, or at a larger scale, we have a lot of Muslim MPs who host multiple iftars, and there are individuals coming in from all sorts
Exactly.
of faiths, and
Exactly.
they're introduced.
Yeah, and Hira, in addition to this, I think what we really need to kind of speak about over here is because we need better understanding in this part, in our part of the world. Now, imagine that you just mentioned at the start of your conversation that, that the rates for the samosas and everything that we consume are actually going to go down. There will be special markets set up for Ramadan, which are actually focused on making sure that they give us meals probably which are way cheaper than how we usually get them. But over here, it's just the other way around. It's like, if aloo was 150 rupees kg, it's 300 rupees kg now. So how do you think that people really need to understand this, number one? Number two, the challenges for people who live abroad is, there's maximum daylight over there, so it gets challenging. What about school timings? What about office timings? So do we have that culture of understanding where your employer will understand, okay, he comes from a Muslim background and he might need to go back early. So do we see those changes in the West as well now?
So, with regards to the food items, just to add on to what you were saying, that not only do the prices decrease, but we have restaurants which have offered free iftars to the needy, to those who really do require a free meal. There are multiple food banks which are just overflowing, mashallah, now to eradicate food insecurity during the month of Ramadan, even more so as Muslims just open up their hearts to be as generous as possible. With regards to workplaces, see, there is systemic racism and discrimination, prejudice everywhere. You may have a little bit of struggle to explain to your employer that you might need to take it a little easier at work. However, you do have that confidence that when you are living in Canada, the slightest bit of racist comment from your employer or prejudice that you receive, if it is addressed publicly and it is the era of social media, they're going to be in trouble. So I feel like that accountability and that fear is there for those who are not respectful enough. But those who are respectful enough within schools, within universities, I'll give you an example. Today, my brother was quite easily excused to leave his lecture hall to open his fast and then return without any questions asked. So it is the same thing for schools, that if it is lunchtime, there's a separate room allotted for those individuals who are fasting, just out of the respect that, of course, the other students who will be consuming their lunches, they don't have to sit and look at their faces, right? The fasting students will be having their own little room. They can perform the salah there, they can have their time off there. So there is a lot of inclusivity which we see within the Ontario region. Again, no area of the world is perfect, but Ontario is really striving to do so.
But Hira, I think I would like to ask you about the question of inclusivity, because you talked about how, because of the social awareness, and if there is some sort of Islamophobic comment or Islamophobia, the awareness level is such that it can be addressed. But I would also want you to highlight the role that the community centers play and the mosques play, because in Pakistan the conception of mosque is very different as compared to the West.
True.
And I think the first thing that you can feel a very viable difference is that women are also going to mosque to pray, and I don't think so we have that much of a vibrant culture of the mosque here in Pakistan.
Only in Faisal Masjid.
Yeah. I mean, there are tarawis, I mean, arranged for the women, but generally, for offering the prayers, women might not be going to the mosque. They might consider the home as their safe space. So please highlight community centers and the role that mosques have to play in this entire inclusivity question.
It is a very festive opportunity to connect with your fellow Muslims, because regardless of you having that typical Pakistani culture here within Canada during Ramadan, and I feel like everybody living within Ontario, especially Mississauga, will agree with this. But despite that, you do want to feel that vibe of back home, of when, yes, you would commemorate Salah with your family, Quran Khanis with your families, somebody or the other from your extended family would visit, or you would visit them. Because that culture cannot be incorporated into the Canadian culture due to the fact that we have such strict work schedules and such a harrowing lifestyle, and everything's done on your own, that the mosque is a place where everybody goes together. It is their safe space to catch up, to
Wow.
plan your Eid out.
Yeah, and that's great, Hira. And thank you so much, first of all, for your time. And I am not sure whether Ontario or Toronto is actually going to celebrate Eid with Pakistan or not, or whether it's your third fast or second. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank
and your
you so
background
much.
looks wonderful as well. And you are the ambassadors, not just for being a Pakistani, but obviously for our religion as well. And make sure that as much as that you can do over there, please make sure that you contribute. And this is that time there that will actually be multiplied by 700 by Allah Almighty, inshallah. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much once again,
Thank
Hira, for being
you.
on our show
That's
and for having this very interesting and wonderful conversation regarding inclusivity and Muslim representation and Ramadan festival in the West. So now we will move on to another very interesting segment or news, I would like to say, which is the World Obesity Day. So World Obesity Day is being observed today to raise awareness about the growing global healthcare challenge. For the obesity, the day emphasizes the need for the collective efforts in education, advocacy, and policy changes to address the multifaceted causes and consequences of obesity. This year themes building a healthy future, tackling obesity through prevention and care serves as a call to action for governments, health system, and communities to prioritize obesity prevention and care. This day reminds us that obesity is not just about weight gain, it is a complex health condition influenced by various factors, including lifestyle, genetics, environment, and mental health.
And there's only one request to people or families out there, and this only happens in our region, that is, oh, ji, bacha bada sehatmand hai. That's not sehat, so please make sure that you actually kind of look after your health as well. But very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, first moon landing by private company. An American firm has successfully landed a spacecraft on the moon in its very first attempt. Wow. Firefly Aerospace sent an uncrewed four-legged blue Ghost spacecraft the size of a compact car to the moon, carrying 10 scientific payloads. A number of private companies are competing in the global moon race. Firefly Aerospace has become the second company to successfully land its spacecraft on the mission. Houston-based company Intuitive Machines Odysseus lander made a touchdown on the moon last year. Wow, I think so in days to come, probably for us to kind of travel to moon won't be really a challenge. Probably on Valentine's or New Year's or your marriage anniversary, you'll be taking your wife to the moon.
True. You never know, how the world evolves around, but I think intergalactic travel is the next big thing, and a lot of people are working on that. But in order to unfold the conversation on the obesity and in Ramadan, how is it working for when we also need to balance our work and our home life? How do you do that? We are glad that we have been joined by a very vibrant doctor who is also an influencer, and I would say a very academic approach to solving the questions, to solving the problem. We're very glad that we have been joined by Dr. RUBIA Usman. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. RUBIA, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, it's wonderful to have you over here.
It's educational. Every time I come on your show, I learn so much,
That's amazing, and I think beautiful
learned
comment
as well,
that gotten from you. So Dr. Rubia, now let's kickstart our conversation. So obesity, right? And like Shehzad mentioned, there's this perception within different cultures, not just South Asia, I think in African cultures too, that if you gain weight, that is considered to be a sign of health and wealth, and it is not considered as a problematic thing. As a doctor, do you think it's a problematic?
100%. I read something really interesting yesterday, and it said you can be overfed and undernourished at the same time.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that is actually what's happening to most of us. We are overfed, so we're eating a lot, but we're eating the wrong kinds of food. So as a result of that, we're not getting nourishment. Then we are going towards shortcuts like multivitamins, supplements, IV drips, give me something, anything to fix me up. But then if you had started off right by eating well-nourishing food, this problem would not have arisen.
Exactly. And you know what, just yesterday, imagine that as soon as it got done, because I do not have dinner. Now people in Ramadan, after iftar, they, after a while they'll have dinner as well. I felt like having sushi. So I was like, okay, I should have sushi. And I ended up eating so much towards the end. I was like, okay, I should have done that. But while we are over here, Dr. Rubia, what we do not understand is that, that there are physiological changes in our body, right? And people might not even cater to all of those needs. So what are those physiological changes that our body experiences, that too during the holy month of Ramadan?
So what happens is, because you're in a starvation mode almost, and you're not having anything to drink. So first thing that your body is craving for is fluid. And unfortunately or fortunately, and I am a very big believer of RUBIA, so I will never diss them. But unfortunately, the main drink, the staple drink or the common drink is having something which is really high in sugar.
Yeah.
As a result of that, what we are doing now is that as soon as your iftar time happens, you're going to chuck down at least a couple of glasses to hydrate yourself. But you've had unnecessary calories, and that too pure carbohydrates, and that too in the purest form of fructose or sugar. As a result of that, your sugar levels are going sky high, and they're spiking. When they spike sky high, you're going to need to have the insulin respond in the same way. So all of the maths basically adds up that we are actually leading to eating the wrong kinds of food and the timing of the food. So that is the problem. Achha, then we stuff ourselves. So we're stuffing ourselves because we have this fear that if we don't eat enough, it will not be enough for the, the next 12 hours or whatever. So people start eating from iftar time and then go on eating till sehri time, simply because of the fact that they want to store their calories. You can't do that, guys. You have to give up, okay? One of the things that I always say is you can't store exercise. Similarly, you can't store calories like that.
But I think, Dr. Rubia, this brings us to a very important question, and I think as a working woman, you might grapple with that, and that is, in Ramadan, how do you balance, your work life and your house, your kids, your husband, your entire household? Because in Ramadan, obviously you're fasting, right? Your kids might not be fasting, but you have to give them the lunch box, and you have to do the entire routine with that. So in this entire Ramadan, you might experience a sort of a burnout. Now, alhamdulillah, this time around, the weather is very kind to us. We are having a very pleasant sort of a Ramadan.
And rosas are shorter as well.
Exactly, which is, amazing thing to have. But please tell us that how to take the self-care, and avoid this burnout.
So I promise you guys, this is the best thing you will hear today. And I know I can't believe I'm saying such a conceited thing, but I was thinking about this all last night when we decided this topic. You have to divide your life into 4 compartments. So you've got the work, obviously, you've got the spiritual aspect to it, and you've got yourself, and then you've got your home and family.
Yeah.
These are essentially every individual has these 4 main things, isn't it? Whether you're male, female, that doesn't matter. Whether you're working or not, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So for the first thing that is spiritual, I would put that at the very top, because I think that is the core idea behind Ramzan. It's not just about fasting or starving. It's mainly about to connect with God.
True.
Simple as that, to put it very simply.
And staying up at night as well, doing ibadah,
Exactly.
nafli ibadat.
So put yourself in a place where you promise yourself that you will do something which is attainable. So whatever your attainable goal is, say for example, I'm going to read 2 siparas a day, or whatever, I'm going to say X, Y, Z. Make a list of what you think you can do, and then give yourself the target of half of that. So don't be over ambitious even with that. Don't be thinking that, oh, I'm going to pray all night, every night for 30 nights, because that will eventually not happen, and then you'll feel guilty and bad about it. Similarly, for food, so that's your home and your family. You don't have to cook something new every single day. So a lot of people message me sometimes, what healthy thing are you having?
No, but that's essential, yaar. That's essential. Come on. I mean, not for working women.
No,
but for women who are at home, probably they can, try
you can
something.
experiment, but at the same time, you can have the same food on repeat as well if you like it, and your family likes it.
Yeah.
So find out what they like and what you love, and just stick to that. Thirdly, for work, don't be over ambitious and say, I am going to be the best person this month, and I'm going to be the employee of the month, and I'm going to achieve all my targets. Because let's face it, you'll be working on half mode most of the days. So don't do that. You'll be sleep deprived, you'll be food deprived, you'll be fluid deprived. So give yourself a realistic work goal. That is what I'm going to do.
And in terms of realistic work goal, there's one thing that I've realized for myself, and Hajra can obviously chip in. Now imagine that, we're doing these morning transmissions as well, and alhamdulillah, we're busy with iftar transmissions, and we are very thankful to Allah Almighty for this opportunity, alhamdulillah. Now what I have done is that for the last 3 days, my friends have been calling me at night. And I'm like, bro, I'm really busy. So we really need to be strict on discipline. And every time that I get 30 minutes or an hour, I'm going to sleep.
Take a nap.
I'll be like, okay, that's it.
No, so that is beautiful. Even a 20-minute nap is enough to rejuvenate you. So that is gorgeous. And that is what you need. And the last thing, that comes to your self-care bit, your own self. Don't set yourself a target that I 30 din I'm going to exercise and I'm going to do what Dr. Rubia does every day in the morning. You can't. You have to give, I tell myself, if I work out 2 weeks out of 4, I've been awesome.
Okay, so you don't do it every day.
That is the aim. My aim is 2 weeks out of 4. So if I do more, I'm brilliant anyway because I've achieved more. But if you can't, and again, your target again can be something like I'm going to walk for 15 minutes after iftari time. It doesn't have to be an aggressive workout that has to last 1 hour or something.
Yeah, but I think, Dr. Rubia, when it comes to the exercise, when it comes to the meditation, yoga and all of these things, basically the mobility that we have in our life, I would say, you know, the absence of the mobility nowadays because, you know, we are using vehicles, we are not walking, and I think we are the generation that is a physically frail generation as compared to our ancestors. Let's, face this reality. So whenever we talk about the exercise that too in Ramadan, and coming from the woman's point of view, because she has to cater towards her kids, husband, ghar ka kaam bhi hota hai, and then, you know, you have to look after the office. So what is a good routine in terms of this exercise? Because when you're exercising, obviously you're not taking fluids as much. And I think as the Ramadan goes, their fluid intakes become even more lesser, you know. Maybe first 5 rosas, 6 rosas, you're getting a good amount of
Swimming in water,
but this ke baad se, you know, that things just, resides back. So how do you think that, you know, we can go for the exercise in this Ramadan?
So keep it simple. That's the best thing. Walk. So for example, a slow, consistent walk every day is probably more superior than any workout that you will do. And that walk can be any time of the day. So you have to find what's your happy medium. So if, for example, some people like to walk or exercise just before iftar time. Some people like to do it post iftar. Some do it post sehri. There are all kinds of times. Find what works for you. Everybody is different.
Exactly. And I believe that, you know, gyms these days have been really smart as well. So the gym that I go to is actually open till 1 a.m. You know, so, you know, after iftar, you can actually go for a power nap, you know, get up and go to the gym. But while we were speaking of it, there's this one thing which I realized, because I mentioned you about, you know, how I actually felt like, you know, there was this craving for sushi. And I ended up having the leftover sandwiches and whatever was left over. But today, when I woke up in the morning, I felt as if, you know, sab sooj gaya. You know, so I don't know how to, you know, everything was puffy. And I was like, I don't know whether what I've eaten, but it has actually contributed to, you know, how I feel now. So what are those superfoods that you think that we really need to consume which will actually help us in weight loss? Because I think most of the time people, if they're going to the gym, that's where their goal is. So how do you think that we can actually be very conclusive of the foods that we are taking? Ki yaar, ye mere liye behtar hai.
Fiber. So just remember one thing, fiber and fluids, FNF, and just Google fibers. So they're in your daily diet, so they're in your dals, they're in your other kinds of beans, vegetables which are dense like in fiber. These are the things you have to focus on. You can't just keep eating kachi sabzi all the time, I get that. But the more fiber you have, the better you feel, the more it sucks the toxins out, the more it sucks the bloatiness out as well, the more it makes you feel better. So yeah, so the puffiness does go away. And excessive salt, that's another. So sushi has soya, has seaweed wraps, so there's excessive salt. That's what retains fluid. That causes
exactly.
But I think, Dr. Rubia, this is one another important point, and that is in Ramadan, you just feel there's a reduction of roti, right? Because you know, you are skipping one meal altogether, and on the iftar you consume too much pakoras and fried item, and then you're so full that, you know, and I think that as a Pakistanis, as South Asians, we're so attuned to the concept of the roti that if roti is just not in your diet, you feel really a loss of energy, right? You don't feel that energy. So what is the alternative for the roti, or do you feel that it's a good option in the first place to replace
I'm so desi. I would probably say roti is probably the best option, if especially it's whole meat chakki atta. So I'm not the one who believes in like rice and alternates really. But you have to limit it. I think the problem with this is not roti, but is the amount of roti that we eat. So I think that's the key, moderation.
Exactly, so moderation is the key. But thank you so much, Dr. Rubia, for being with us. And you know, before actually, because we do know for a fact that Dr. Rubia, whenever she comes to our show, she's full of energy. And I wanted to see how she's going to do in Rosa. You know, but you did absolutely well. Thank you so much for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation.
Thank you so much once again for being on our show. And I think there is a very interesting conversation, that is that how a $19 strawberry has caused a stir on the online platforms. So strawberry
finally after the $6 million bananas, right?
Yeah, strawberry imported from the Japan has caused quite a stir on the internet due to its exorbitant price. People on the various social media platforms are talking about The strawberry, the cost of that is set at $18.99. Some questioning the logic behind such a high price. The fruit is being sold at the luxury grocery store chain One in Los Angeles, which is known for its Lister shoppers. One has gained a fame for a housing celebrity branded smoothie, including Kendall Jenner's peaches and cream smoothie and Justin Bieber's strawberry glazed soft serve smoothie. And this is a very interesting news because I think strawberry is something that is a very fresh fruit in terms of it does not survive for a couple of days because 50% of it it's gets just it's over ripened and you can't eat it. But in the Americas, I've seen this thing that you get a strawberry which is there 24/7. I don't know what sort of genetic mutation they are doing that, but that strawberry is very scary, although it looks very pretty, but I don't think
and
so.
Hajra, in addition to this, in the West, there's another practice as well. So with strawberry, they would always have these cream bottles as well. So you top it up with the cream and you just keep on eating it. So it does
or
not
dip it in the chocolate.
Yeah, or dip it in the chocolate. But strawberries, I think one of my favorite fruits. But while we're at it, I think one of the favorite paintings that people have actually spoken about in all these decades is Cleopatra. So the birthplace of the ancient Queen Cleopatra in the Egyptian city of Alexandria is seeing a dramatic surge in building collapses. According to a new research published by the University of Southern California, the collapse of buildings is witnessing a rise due to coastal erosion and rising level of the Mediterranean Sea. The study said seawater is seeping into the city foundations, which is rendering them weak. I think they really need to kind of go to Europe and Venice and look whether what they're doing right.
Right. And I think if you need to learn about the planning or the community planning, I think Indus Valley Civilization can offer a lot. But in terms of how to look after your health and whenever we talk about comprehensive health or well-being in terms of the Ramadan and how to cater to your bodily as well as spiritual needs. So in order to unfold this conversation and cultivating gratitude, the mental benefits of Ramadan spiritual practice, we are very glad that we have been joined by a psychotherapist, FARWA Naqvi. Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak to you.
Walaikum salam. Thank you. To you guys as well.
Thank you so much, Farwa, for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. So let's straight delve into the conversation, the mental benefits, because it takes you at least 2-3 rosas to kind of get around those mental benefits. Because first of all, you're really struggling. Okay, yaar, mujhe bhook to nahi lag rahi, pyaas to nahi lag rahi, ye to nahi ho raha. And then there's a time when you're actually afloat. And so what are the mental benefits that we can actually take away from Ramadan?
Yes, and I think around the end of Ramzan also, because neurological benefits and the impact of fasting for a month, that kind of like also gets manifested in the the latter part of Ramzan. So basically, to answer this question, I'm going to assume that we're talking about people who are already doing okay in their mental health, because it's not one size fits all, and for some people it can some people can be prescribed by the doctor not to fast.
And in addition to this, self-discipline and emotional regulation.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, basically one of the greatest blessings of Ramadan is while fasting, even I oftentimes encounter this, is the self-awareness that we get, that we're indulging in a lot of unhealthy and bad, socially bad, like people are using wrong words. A lot of the times we're thinking about things we're not supposed to, or we're talking about other people. But while during the fasting period, we're constantly reminded of the fact that no, okay, we're fasting, so let's not talk about somebody, or let's not use bad words, all of that. So that's something that we normalize during the year, but in Ramzan we definitely the self-awareness benefit, even cognitively, that in our heads we know that okay, let's not think about something like something we're not supposed to.
If we choose to practice that. But Farwa, I think there's a lot of conversation on the loneliness aspect, right? Especially in the West, a lot of people are suffering from this pandemic. But in Ramadan, and I think Allah Ta'ala also encourages us to go into the solitude, to observe ourselves and to observe the beauty around us, and this is one of the quality of being a moment. So in this modern conversation, where there's a lot of talk around the loneliness, how do you reconcile these two contrasting concepts of the solitude and the loneliness?
With respect to Ramzan,
yes,
speaking.
Of course.
So yeah, it's lovely here in Pakistan, because a lot of the people who are living abroad, they actually miss the festivity and the fact that the entire nation, the majority of people here are Muslims, and the entire nation is sharing the sentiments and the markets and the timings and everything. So a lot of it can also be inconvenient but still, you know, we're all sharing the sentiment. So it's very important even to face something that, you know, we're liking or disliking and all of what's happening systemically. So it also helps us to connect with each other. So
Right.
so that's
But
a lovely part.
that's a beautiful concept, and I think whenever we talk about the Ramadan, and like you mentioned that, you know, Ramadan is one of the metaphysical aspect of Ramadan is that it refrains us from those social evils or social ills, right? And I think one of that is the gossiping. So, and we would also not deny the fact that the gossiping is a billion-dollar industry. I mean, you find all of these tabloids, the celebrity news, they all operate on the gossip, right? So whenever we talk, as a psychotherapist, and we've seen that how a negative talk can self-affect you, right?
Yeah.
And no matter how much you say that I have a thick skin, at some point of the time, it does
Yeah.
affect you
You
at
give
some
in.
point. Yeah, yeah. So how do you feel that, you know, as a Muslim, we need to rein in our nafs or our ego in order to make sure that, you know, our conversations, our words are not hurting someone else?
So basically, you know, if you're judging somebody or if you're speaking ill about somebody, that's your own self-concept and it's coming from a place of your own psyche. So if you're harsh on yourself or if you're insecure about yourself or if you're dealing with some kind of complex, you're just going to project it to somebody else and you're going to judge them for that.
Yeah.
If you're not looking inwards, right? So that's how a therapy and psychosocial support also helps over there.
Yeah.
That,
But-
you know,
but
for
why-
self-awareness.
Right. Why do you think that people have become so judgmental now? I mean, obviously this coach was always present there. I would not deny that. But how much do you think social media is playing a role in spreading the sort of insecurities that we see nowadays with beauty filters, with all of this concept, with the comparisons that are happening, with the peer pressure that is going on? How do you think we can, you know, stop that noise, the cacophony of the world that is so pervasive on the social media?
Yes, that's very important, and teenagers are being very affected.
yes.
Children are being very affected. So many children, you know, they push their parents to get them the new tabloids or whatever the influencers and other people are,
Yeah.
you know, having there. And I've seen news that a lot of people have died by suicide, kids, because the parents could not provide all of that.
Right.
So, you know, I feel that we need educated influencers as well, and there needs to be some regulation as to what needs to be, you know,
And not just that,
promoted.
I think, you know, I came across a beautiful article just early in the morning, and a friend of mine who's actually you know, just got done with his PhD, he says that imagine that most of the times within the affairs of our life, what happens is that we think about people, which is our projection, that they might have done something wrong at the back. You know, this is something that we are assuming. But what happens is that, you know, us as Muslims, unfortunately, if we do a mistake and if we seek forgiveness from Allah Almighty, Allah will always forgive. And the mamlat will continue in between you and Allah. So please make sure that you actually try to take your mamlat just like that. But while we're at it, there's one more thing that I would want to discuss, and that is that no matter what happens, you know, other than Ramadan, the 11 months, you will never see, you know, people fighting at Maghrib time, or people kind of pretending that, you know, कि उन्होंने रोज़ा शायद सिर्फ आपके ऊपर बाहर रखने के लिए रखा है, that they're fasting, you know, so that, you know, you're that one person who's actually going to kind of get them mad or whatnot. How do you think that people can actually be in control and be mindful and be sensible and be like, hey, you know what, please, you know, I'm fasting, you're fasting, let's just go our ways and let's not argue. I think that's one thing that we really need to instill in our nation, because every time you come across somebody and, you know, there's something wrong, just a little thing which might not even annoy you, other than, you know, if you're not fasting, they'll be like, yaar, tumhe pata nahi maine roza rakha hua hai yaar, you know, and this and that and whatnot.
Yeah, I feel that this self-righteousness happens throughout the year. Even, you know, people who are you know, observe namaz 5 times. There's also a self-righteousness, and then they feel that, you know, we can judge other people because we have this license of, you know, judging and making choices because we feel self-righteous about ourselves. So there is a lot of entitlement basically, and I feel that a lot of crimes and social evil also come in Pakistan and also all over the world,
All over
that coming from a place of impunity and entitlement.
Okay.
So people definitely think, and a lot of our crimes are very power crimes more than other than.
True.
कि मैं ये कर सकता
I
हूँ,
think,
तुम ये कर
yeah,
सकते
yeah,
हो।
that is also an expression that we are in the, you know, position of power, we are more powerful individual. But thank you so much, Farwa, for being on our show and for having this wonderful conversation where we're talking about the souls, the diseases of the souls that affect us, and I think one of that is the gossip, and one of that is how your words have this capacity to heal people and also to hurt people in the same manner. And I think Ramadan forces us to be very mindful of how our attitude, our behavior is. So with that, we are winding up our segment, we are winding up our
Exactly.
program. Until next time, it's a goodbye. Allah
there's
Hafiz.
just an
And
email to be given away as
Right.
well. So ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you write to us on worldthismorning@ptv.com.pk. Until next time, look after yourselves. We'll see you at 4 p.m. today, inshallah, with the iftar transmission. And so stay tuned to PTV World because we're bringing you the best transmissions, and that too during the holy month of Ramadan. Until next time, look after yourselves. Ramadan Mubarak. Allah Hafiz. Good
Allah
morning.
Hafiz. Ramazan
Have a great
Mubarak
day.
to you, everyone.